here we go. Welcome to the inaugural episode of Bobbin Around, SPESA's exclusive podcast. My name is Xochil Herrera Scheer. I am the unofficial president of the SPESA fan club, here with Michael, my co-host.
Thanks, Xochil. I'm Michael McDonald. I'm the president of SPESA, a secondary role to Xochil's president role. So I'm just honored to be included in this endeavor.
Yes, we're excited to be here, joined by Jennifer. Thank you so much for being our first guest.
Thank you guys for inviting me. I just declared myself the first official member of the SPESA fan club under Xochil's leadership.
We all look forward to her long tenure.
Yes, we do. So I'm Jennifer Mouraview. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Nufabrx. It's an innovative new company, not so new, but an emerging company putting medicine into clothing.
I think that's so super cool. So for those who are unfamiliar, kind of dive into like, what are the types of products you make? What are the problems you're solving?
Sure. Nufabrx is really focused on bringing pain relief to our wearers in a new non-pill form. So what that is we're manufacturing sleeves that go on the elbow, the wrist, the knee, the leg, whatever body part might ail you, similar to a product you may have bought before if you sprained your ankle. What's unique about our product is that it also contains capsaicin. Capsaicin's a form of a chili pepper, so it's a little bit tingly, spicy, similar to if you had bought Icy Hot, to use a name brand product. With Icy Hot, when you put that on, it's all over your hands, it's on your skin. It's difficult to get off. You hope you don't rub your eyes. You hope you don't need to use the bathroom immediately for men. There's some other tricky things with that. So instead of putting on the Icy Hot or whatever brand cream you may choose, and then putting a sleeve on, this is all in one. You just pull on the sleeve when you have pain, you wear it, and then you remove it. And you're not getting that mess. It's very clean. Most people don't feel anything. Sometimes if you're getting hot or sweating, you will feel a tingle sensation. So it's a little bit more of a comfortable wearing experience as well.
That's so super cool.
Yeah,
I think that's amazing.
I definitely think, again, mentioning capsaicin and, people that don't understand the difficulties of dealing with that around certain sensitive body parts it's very important. Like, I'm a big nerd and watch, Hot Ones, which is a podcast on the internet. And every single time you have to remind people, don't touch your eyes. And it is definitely a common human trait that people have to worry about. And so anybody that's used Icy Hot has at least done it once. Now, you only usually have to do it once before you start taking better precautions. But to just remove that risk entirely it's a benefit to humanity. I can say that much.
Right, kind of the dummy proof it, make it completely safe. And
I don't want to unfairly target any brand. Actually, in Icy Hot, I don't think capsaicin's their active ingredient, but it is a similar type sensation that we're all familiar with because you do it once and it's seared in your mind.
Instant regret.
Instant regret.
No regret.
No shade thrown at Icy Hot. They're still a perfectly good product.
Absolutely. Great product. Biofreeze, they're all wonderful.
How do you educate your consumers around this and just how easy it is to receive pain relief or other benefits through the wearables?
I think that's honestly been one of the biggest challenges because, as I mentioned, a lot of people don't feel it. So they pull it on, they don't feel anything. And especially if you don't have any pain, it's hard to convince people something's going on. I compare it to a patch. A lot of people are understanding how patches work. Mm-hmm. For some reason, nicotine patches are very well understood. They're very accepted. People believe in that. There's a lot of vitamins and other things now being dispensed through patches. And I think people look at those as pseudoscience, when it's actually very similar technology. So it's just interesting that some products have been very common, very well received, nicotine patches, hormone replacement patches, those items. Mm-hmm. But when you're starting to get into homeopathic or over-the-counter products, I think there's still some skepticism out there. So the biggest thing is try it. Just give it a shot. Go into it with an open mind. I will say my husband has been my biggest critic. He definitely he does not feel capsaicin. I continue to try and get hotter and hotter products and to try and make him get that burn.
You're doing your own hot ones at home.
I'm doing my own little hot contest at home, trying to straight up mace him.
Love that.
But again, if you don't have any pain, he was trying it on. He didn't have any pain. So if you pull it on, he's like, it just feels like a sleeve.
Well, you got to punch him first. So
Exactly. So finally, he's an avid golfer. He did get a golfer's elbow injury. And finally, I was like, put it on. Just put it on and go to bed. So he said he didn't feel anything, but when he woke up, his elbow was better. So he still won't give it to me, but I do catch him many, many nights. He pulls it on before he goes to bed. He still won't quite give it to me, but he wears it most nights.
I consider that a win for you.
I am taking that. I'm taking that for the win.
Taking the quiet win.
Absolutely.
But the biggest advantage is that you're not ingesting pills, and I think that's what's really unique about everything that's happening with patches or wearable clothing. Is I just think people have pill fatigue, especially if you're getting into some of those larger pills. It's one more pill, you don't want to take it. It's really bad compliance. Just because it sounds simple to just take a pill, it's not.
No,
Yes, I am the perfect case study for that. Again, I've got severe ADD, and so I've got all my pills lined up. But as soon as I travel, I'll either take the pill bottle or the pill case with me, and then it never ends up back in the place that I want it to be. And so if it's out of sight, out of mind. But if it's something that's wearable, like it's sitting there in your nightstand, and it's not like you're going to wear it around the rest of the day. You put it back in your nightstand, you pull it out, it doesn't move, and that helps me. So
yeah, and it's even not just forgetting about it. It's just the simple act of swallowing some of these pills. Like some of these are just so big that they're tough to get down.
Yep.
Yeah, I hate taking pills. Like some of them, I have to break them in half, like, and be like, okay, it's time. Like I'm gonna do it, but I hate it.
Right, and if your ankle hurts, you don't necessarily want to take a pain relief that's going into your entire body. If you have the opportunity to just treat that point of pain,
isolate it, target it. Love that. Yeah, you don't want to be like fatigued because you took medication because you're not hurting everywhere.
Right. But I will say there is definitely skepticism out there, and educating people and just having them try it is really the biggest thing. And then delivering it also with a sleeve. Again, it's a non-medical grade compression. It's just a gentle compression, just enough to make really good skin contact. But just that act of compression, the graduated compression, also brings some relief as well. So it's in conjunction together.
Nice.
Love that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to get into a lot more about the plans for the company, the process of the company. But I think in order to kind of get into that conversation, we need to backtrack a little bit and learn about you, because you have an interesting path to where you are today. I always make the joke for our industry in the textile industry, either you're born into it or tricked into it. There's only a few people, a few exceptions that make the rule, but can you give us a little bit of background of your path, and what kind of led your passion to where you are right now?
Sure. I'm one of those people that actually started on this path. I know there's not many of us. I agree with you. A lot of people have a roundabout way. I have some zigs and zags in there, but going way back when I was in high school, I thought I'd be an architect. When it came time to apply to college, I had so many high school drafting classes that if I saw another drafting table, I was going to throw it out the window. So all of a sudden here you are, you're 17 years old, and you need to pick what you're going to do with the rest of your life. Because I came from a family that I was not going to be a liberal arts major to find myself. So I just started combing through books. And I was like, all right, I'm good at chemistry and I'm good at art. So I was looking at chemical engineering, and I came across this very small byline about something called fiber science. And it was really the intersection of chemistry and apparel and how it can support and help the human body. I went to Cornell University, and up there was a lot focused on the medical side. Some of the grafts that were used to replace veins or some bio parts. Biology is not my thing. I stayed out of that area. It's really super interesting. That is not my passion. More the chemistry side. So what was interesting about that is that was a land grant university. So the tuition in the human ecology was the New York State tuition versus the chemistry tuition. So it was about a $30,000 difference. That helped guide my decision when I was thinking about it. Hadn't really heard about it. The undergraduate program was very small. I was fortunate that my guidance counselor was able to set up a visit to a company in our town that made fire retardant equipment. So when I went to visit them, they aproned me up, covered my face. I put on some mitts, and they handed me a red hot iron ore that I was able to hold in my hand.
Oh.
So not the same pyroman experience a lot of people have had at NC State,
Oh,
but I
yeah.
go back to like it is the fire that like hooks everybody.
Oh.
Yeah.
So when you're going to functional clothing and you just see a man light on fire that's completely protected, or you're holding a red hot iron ore, you're like, this is what I want to do. I'm in. I'm in. So at 17, I picked this major. That was the extent of what I knew about it, and off I went. While in school, I did some design work, and it turned out I was pretty good at that as well. So before I went to graduate school, I decided to take a year in New York to see how that went. And obviously, a year in New York turned into a 25-year path in fashion. So I sort of fell into that side, and it took me getting to Destination Maternity. I was introduced to this company. They were looking to do maternity wear, putting shea butter into clothing so women didn't need to rub their belly every single morning, and this would help not only with stretch marks but also just that overall itchy feeling that a lot of women get. So I partnered with them. Actually, I should say our very first phone call we had, it was a courtesy phone call. I thought it was just going to be another microencapsulated aloe product. Didn't really go in with any expectations. It was January 1st. Very fortuitous that it was the beginning of the year. By the end of the phone call, I was like, when are you guys hiring? I'm coming to work for you.
Wow.
So it was just a very new technology going in and coating the yarn, and they were able to deliver a measurable dose. That it was a consistent dose, and they knew exactly what that threshold was. That was the first time I'd heard of that.
Yep.
So the reason I kind of layered in the story about where I started in the fashion is that this is what I said I wanted to do when I was 17 years old. I wanted to figure out the intersection of textiles and how it could help the human body. So I diverted through fashion, through product development, fabric development. Through big corporations, I really started my career at Tommy Hilfiger. I went to May Company, Lilly Pulitzer, and then ultimately Destination Maternity, where I was introduced to Nufabrx. Nufabrx called, and it reignited that passion that I had when I was 17 years old. This career path didn't exist then.
Mm-hmm.
So it just brought me back to my 17-year-old self that I said I was going to do that. And so it felt
now
like
you are.
and here I am, and it was just a really great opportunity. And Nufabrx was at the point that they'd really been science heavy in their development. It was a lot of lab work. They did have a yarn person and also someone that ran the machines, but they really didn't have someone that had a fashion background or apparel background to figure out how to take this product and turn it into something wearable outside of a sleeve. As I mentioned, today we're sleeves. This product, we're obviously looking at expanding into apparel. There's certain body parts that are very challenging to address. If you have a shoulder injury today, anything out in the market that's a brace is very heavy, involves a lot of Velcro straps. It doesn't give you freedom of movement. The same thing with women's hips. They have a lot of hip injuries. There's no easy way to do that except lying flat on your back or a heating pad or something like that. Imagine if you could just pull on a pair of bike shorts. You can go about your day, get treated, and not have to be strapped up or worried about ruining your clothes by these creams and other things that you're layering on. And the same thing for shoulder mobility. So here I am to try and help them fulfill that need and figure out ways that we can bring products to market that can really help people live a better quality of life.
I love that. That's so inspiring, and to be able to have that kind of full circle moment. I'm sure experiencing that is pretty cool feeling for you.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I've got the worst idea possible, but now I'm gonna execute on it. I'm like, if more people had your experience, even in lower school and middle school, of you can have superpowers. You can be, do you want to be fireproof? This is the industry for you. We have such a hard time, recruiting the next generation. But I'm like, we actually have a cool story to tell. You could create an entire comic strip and be like, these superpowers are related to this, apparel product. So what you're doing now, do you want to have healing powers? Because that's kind of what you got.
I mean,
body regeneration.
If people saw Pyroman on NC State, just kids would sign up for this.
I know.
He's got to do like
I
a little
honestly
world
think,
tour.
yeah, your experience might be even more impactful though, because I took the pyroman path, and it, don't get me wrong, it definitely brought me into the industry, so it works. But like, it's different seeing it on a mannequin than to literally be holding molten ore. Like, that's a baffling concept to me.
I know, and it's killing me that I can't find the picture of it. Like I got the picture. Of course, I'm all dressed up, like I'm in my interview clothes, because I'm 17 years old. That's what you
Yes.
do. And I know that picture exists. When we moved, I've gone through everything trying to find it. Like you can just see how hot that was. But it's just it's there's a lot of cool things going on that I think our industry's not telling the story. Like even my nephews are, going into the engineering fields. And I'm telling them all the things that you're doing with textiles, like the carrier dome is made out of like steel textiles, basically. There's a lot of things that people just aren't thinking about, and how do we share that message? I think it's communicated very well in the South.
Yeah.
Like North Carolina, NC State, their labs just blew me away. The quality of education there and what's going on. I did not know that existed, but how do we communicate that elsewhere to try and get people into these industries?
Yeah, because there's so many. Again, I'm an NC State alum, so I'll never deny my biases. But there's so many other cool universities, out there as well. Like, we're doing a conference in Austin, and Austin Community College has an incubator, and even Baylor and TCU, and every college in Texas has some kind of degree. So there's so many other opportunities. But no, I think I need to start taking like academic research papers and turning them into comic books. First, I have to learn how to draw, but I don't know. That's
I
not
think
that
it's a good
important.
idea. I mean, people really didn't know about it. I was one of two people that came in my year.
Wow.
That's it. I mean, Cornell's program was a lot more graduate level, so I moved to the graduate classes quickly. But
Yeah.
it's tiny, and I'm not sure why, because there is so much that you can do, and there's so many things textiles is replacing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting the architecture background. I took architecture classes also in high school and kind of took the design path as well. And it's interesting to me hearing how many people who go into like design share that because there is kind of that engineering side of your brain that it's done in a different way. We're not building bridges, but I think I've encountered multiple people with that type of background, even if it's just a class or two, and they considered interior design or architecture, stuff like that.
That's what makes you an amazing pattern maker. Because I think like that, those were my skills are like true detailed sketches for tech packs. I
Yeah,
cannot do loose fashion illustration to save my life.
no.
So my brain is like, I need every stitch, I need every detail, I need every button counted out. But those
Yep.
classes of fashion illustration,
Like they look beautiful. It's art. It's like an art form, but it's not
it's
what,
it's a different brain, yeah.
yeah, it's not this is what I need to manufacture this. This is what the factory needs. This is, yeah.
Yeah. I think you're right though. I think that's how your brain is trained. It's very relative.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. No, I remember experimenting with like this was pre like 3D prototyping that we obviously have now in CAD, but like using AutoCAD and oh, we can make a cylinder. I'm like, could I try to make a person? That would be really cool. And now, 20 years later, it's all over the place. So it is cool to have that like what if question in your head as a 16, 17-year-old kid figuring out what you're going to do and then seeing it come to fruition. So yeah, again, I think it's that superhero like futurism thing where I'll think about the future. Youth are definitely thinking about their future, like what does that look like and how interesting is that?
We're holding Michael to that comic book. I like that idea. Note made.
Yes. I love
We'll find
that.
someone. Xochil can do it.
I don't know if I'm a comic book illustrator, but
You never
my
know
daughter,
until you try.
my daughter likes illustrating little booklets, so maybe we'll recruit her.
Michael, we were at the AI class. We can do
Yeah.
it.
Oh
We
yeah.
got some skills. We can do it.
I feel good or bad about that. I'm sure.
I think we can do it.
We'll figure it out.
We can edit this part out, but I do think this is a side note that I do think it's the fire, like talking to people that got this passion. What was the moment? There's almost always some sort of fire involved.
What was that spark? Yes. What was that spark? No, I'd like to transition and talk a little bit about supply chain. I think that people, your company, passionate about supply chain based entirely in the US. I think that's super cool. I know it's a very challenging thing to navigate. let alone all the like FDA things that you also have to, of course, go through. Tell us though, like, I guess from the setup point, like, why is that important to you? How has your experience been? Yeah, talk about that a little bit.
I definitely think that's been one of the biggest challenges, and one of my proudest accomplishments is maintaining that supply chain. I think working primarily overseas for the last 25 years at Tommy Hilfiger, we did do quite a bit of domestic t-shirt production. Obviously, a t-shirt is very different than a seamed, heavily sewn product.
Right.
And when you're working with overseas factories, you take it for granted when you ask for something. It magically is put together. You can specify the fabric. I did work on the fabric. So I did do a lot of fabric sourcing with mills.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd pick my fabric and I would ask for the product. I'd give a tech back, and it magically came back with the correct zipper, the correct button, the matching threads, exactly what you envision. And it was very easy. So when you're working domestically, it's on you to put those pieces together. So coming back, it was like, okay, I underestimated that challenge. I would say the first thing I did is asking people, like, what do I need to do? How do I rebuild my supply chain? I was directed to the AAPN. I was directed to SAMES, SPESA. Get involved, start asking questions, just start talking to people. So that would be my number one recommendation to anyone listening, is join these organizations. Everyone is there. Everyone is there trying to make this work, and they want to help you. There's no one out there sabotaging you, trying to take your ideas, things that you might worry about overseas.
Absolutely.
Here, ironically, you don't have that. I really feel that everybody goes above and beyond in trying to connect you and legit help you and give you that time. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to say you don't know and you don't know where to go. That's honestly the best thing you can do, is like, I have this idea. Can you help me?
I think that's like the closest thing you can get to a toolbox, so to speak, domestically, because there isn't like, oh, I'm going to go walk across the street and do here. And like there are tiny garment districts, or probably leftover garment district even in New York, but you can't truly find your supply chain that easily domestically. You are like, okay, I have to find this here, and then I have to go find this here and procure it all together and make sure my colors match, and all the it's a lot of work, a lot more work than I think anyone thinks it's going to be.
I think that was my biggest, is underestimating how much work that would be. The flip side is how involved and how connected everyone really is. We were fortunate the original company, Nufabrx, began at a manufacturing solution center in Conover. That is a built-in library of information.
Yeah.
And I still rely on those guys. If I have a question, they will always make time to help you and try and point you in the right direction. There's no obligations. They're just really trying to help you.
They're an amazing facility and an amazing group of people.
So there's incubator groups like that popping all over. They're not hard to find. They're not easy, but they're not hard. You just start networking throughout that. We started as a domestic source because we had to. I mean, as I mentioned, we started at a manufacturing solution center. The original founder had this idea to build this yarn and set up the facility in manufacturing solution center. So we had that built in access to that support network. Our factory is here in Ashboro, so that there was great communication between those two, but it was getting those pieces together and the yarns you need. It made sense to keep it here in North Carolina. As we started to grow and I came on board, we did consider going overseas. The challenges as we're a growing company, our needs are unpredictable. As we're loading in new retailers and working in the drugstore space, it's very different than an apparel load. When you're loading a new apparel store, you're usually working on a 12 to 16 month calendar. You're selling them. Here we are in March, so we're probably looking at 2026. You have that runway, and you have that time and that leisure to build that inventory. When you're working in some of these drugstore spaces, you may have 60 days notice, sometimes less. And obviously, if there's an opportunity to load product, you want to. And unfortunately, we're a small company. We have a pretty significant distribution through Walmart, CVS, Giant Eagle, Wegmans, some other brands. We're pretty accessible for a smaller organization. But we do want to be able to satisfy those needs as fast as we can. The only way I could do that without barreling into inventory was to do that domestically.
I think
So,
that's amazing.
100%. I mean, first off, shout out to with Jeff, Tony, and Tanya at MSC. They are an awesome
Yeah.
team. We love working with them. But I mean, I think you said it exactly right. Manufacturing in the U.S. is not easy. There's no, and there's no Li and Feng who you say, I want this product made this way, and they're like, got it.
No problem.
They
Yeah.
handle all if you run out of buttons, they know, 9 other button factories on the same street. And can really adjust the supply chains. We don't have that in the U.S. And, it's part of the problem, but it's a solution we need to solve. But on the flip side, there are a few companies, maybe in the military manufacturing, that are fighting over pieces of the pie. The rest of the industry is like, how do we make the pie bigger? I mean, realistically, we manufacture like 2.8% of the clothes that we wear in the U.S. That's a tiny pie. So
Right.
the rest of the industry is like, how do we make the pie bigger? And that's why it's a really, really supportive industry. There's still people that are just bred on competition, but I think there's a lot of people that have that cooperative mindset of like, we're all in this together. Me helping you doesn't mean I lose any business. It means that we have the opportunity to bring more back into the U.S. domestic marketplace. And I mean, I kind of preach that mentality across the entire Western Hemisphere. But you definitely see it prevalent in those groups like Seams, like AAPN, and a lot of the others that are really focusing on that U.S. manufacturing side. So yeah, it's not easy, but it's a rewarding exercise.
it is. It
Yeah.
says a lot that I know the people making my products. If I have a quality issue, I walk out on the floor, I see it the same day. If I'm doing product development, I'm standing at the machine and I'm able to see exactly what's happening.
Yeah,
So there are a lot of rewarding aspects to it. I think the biggest one is just the inventory.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
honestly, working for the companies I did, if I could get a lower price for buying 50,000 units when I probably only needed 30, we bought 50 and we just sold it longer thinking it would last. But inevitably, that you can call it a core style and core colors that people will say, oh, we can sell that for 2 years. Everyone wants new colors,
Right.
but you're now stuck because you have the old colors, or you have to mark it down and it's not selling, or you don't have the right size mix. Being domestically, I'm able to change this pretty quickly if I need to.
Yeah, you can swap out that color. And I think what a lot of brands do when they inevitably, start to go overseas for their production, rather than letting their suppliers grow with them and meet the capacity needs as they're changing and growing as a company, that company could have hired a few more people to grow with you and support your growth too, which is great for both of you. Versus the ones that leave and then maybe now they have to lay off some people actually because, so we're struggling with that mix. Hard to find people in the first place and then keeping people when brands leave. So I think that's wonderful that you've stuck to it and, are committed to it fully. We need more of that.
It's not without challenges when you said that, though, because there are things that when you have a smaller business and you're domestic, you're also not able to diversify as much.
Right.
So there is some inherent risk with that if something happens and the factory closes for a few days. So you can't be completely lean. You need to plan for your rainy day.
Totally.
And there still are supply chains happening for sure. There's been issues on some of my master batches, on some of getting the POI, things like that.
yeah,
And not knowing the demand we have, the only way I can respond quickly is if I have my raw materials.
yep,
So
Right.
the one thing you do have to do here that, unlike overseas, I very rarely put money up front. I did not share in the responsibility. There's a transferring of almost all the ownership and the upfront cost to that global partner. However they do it, they're big organizations. Here domestically, you need to have skin in the game.
yeah,
Like I can't go out and say I need 200,000 units and my order only comes in at 30,000 and they're sitting on that. So to kind of counter that, I have gone out and purchased raw materials. I do have six to 12 months projections on yarns, but those are ready. I'm holding in raw yarns. I've had to be smart in consolidating the same yarns across all my products so I can flip between the SKUs. things
Mm.
like that, or changing the machines to make sure the products can all run on the same machine type in order to manage that. So you have to work within some restrictions and figure out what makes sense to do that. But I do think domestically, to make it work, you have to be prepared to have some skin in the game too. As you said, it's very mutual. No one can do this alone.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
Absolutely.
going to go ahead and get myself in trouble on our very first podcast. But the one thing that you didn't mention, about your plans, and I'm not going to speak for you. I'm sure it plays a role, but is talking about consumer demand for Made in America. Because I get really frustrated when that's, the main purpose of somebody wanting to come back to the US. Because to me, it's a bad reason. It's a bad reason. There is definitely a niche that really supports Made in America products, but it's really hard to build a business model off of that. Like you need a lot more than that. But what you're saying is that's not the reason. The reason are all these other supply chain factors and control and visibility. These are all the real tangible benefits of making it in America. And then you have the icing on the cake that is this is made in America. Then you can sell that. But it's a terrible like first initiative for domestic manufacturing. Now, if you as a person want to have that patriotic pride, then you get that personal fulfillment out of your manufacturing. But it's really hard to build, a consumer base off of Made in America these days. And so, that's been my push of like it's possible, it's tangible, it's feasible. And so, come at it with the quantitative metrics rather than the feel good story. And I think that we have that opportunity over the next decade to really continue to push the viability of domestic manufacturing rather than, the patriotic obligation.
Right.
So,
Like the brand has to buy into the message too, not just tell the message.
yeah,
I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, and one of the biggest challenges that I faced working for larger organizations. I know a lot of the textile groups, AAPN, Seams Again, have shared some costing models that have been done. You can run the numbers. It does financially, it does make sense when you assign time and inventory at cost.
yeah,
Unfortunately, that's not showing up on your immediate receiving IMU.
yep,
It takes a little bit more running through. The math is there, but I agree. The consumers say they want to buy Made in America. I don't know that they're actually looking for it,
yeah,
and I don't know that they're willing to pay more for it.
Right.
I am lucky in that we're using a seamless product. I don't have a lot of sewing labor, so I don't want to mislead everybody saying that this is simple. I do think anything you can automate or do on machinery definitely helps. So as we look to move into other product categories, that's something that we're keeping in mind too, that my patterns do have to remain simple. My color assortment right now, we're black. We probably need to keep that pretty tight. So it's learning to work within your restrictions. And I found some of the best designers I work with too do better when you have a very tight set of restrictions. If you have unlimited possibilities and you're always wanting to change and introducing, a new line drop every month, it might not be the model for you. But when you're working at a core product that is somewhat regimented, this works. And there's a lot happening in automated. And
yeah.
just talk to Frank Henderson. Like I love listening to him. I love watching him. And I mean, that's your niche.
Oh yeah. On behalf of all the equipment suppliers, like no, I mean, again, you were plucking some heartstrings there with your statement because I think there's two aspects to it. One is the automation. Like it's not there yet, but we've made more progress in the last 5 years than the 50 years before that. Like we had better automation in 1980 than we did up until about like 2015. So in 2015, we finally caught up to the 80s, but now we've made these significant steps. But sewing automation is the greatest engineering challenge in manufacturing today. We've privatized space travel, but it's flexible material. It's hard to automate sewing. But we're getting like we're tackling operation by operation by operation. And so, it's at it couldn't come at a better time because we need it desperately for domestic manufacturing. Because like you said, we're not getting more sewing operators in the US. It's just not a job that people want or are taking for valid reasons. But then on the other side, you mentioned the concept of design to manufacture, which is just a passion project of mine. I worked with companies that, their brand customers would be like, I don't want my designers anywhere near your factory because that'll stifle their creativity. I call BS on that all day. Like you said, adding those constraints is what, at least for me, inspires more creativity.
Right. How do you smartly work around these parameters? Like I
Yeah.
always think that's the best design challenge, as a pattern maker, as a designer myself, you want that like, okay, I can't do this, but in order to do what I want, maybe I can do this. And it gets you actually, I think, more creative than if you just have a blank piece of paper and you can do whatever you want, you know.
Yeah. So I think if we did like a second chapter of the podcast, we could spend the entire time just talking about how do you design to manufacture. I
Yes.
think that is a lesson that is worth teaching.
Yeah, but I do think that's critical to working in the US. Like you have to understand what you can do and what you're just asking too much. And it's figuring that out so that both you and your factories, everybody's going to succeed together.
Right. And if you're looking to, cut a cost, having a true understanding of why something costs a lot, because maybe it does take a lot of time or a lot of extra maneuvering, where if you tweak the design slightly, you cut off, minutes and dollars, and that all adds up. So if you don't have that conversation and you're not having that conversation with your suppliers, you're not going to find that out.
Yeah.
And that's the other advantage of being in the US. Your designers can go and they can watch the product being made. They can see the pattern being laid. They can see where the waste is. I think that's a tremendous education that, I came of age when I was able to travel 4 times a year. I was in the factories. That'd be my biggest recommendation to anyone. If you travel, go to the factory. Do not stay in a hotel and take the meetings there. Take the extra time, make the drive, no matter how not pretty it may be. That's the only way to learn. And I think that's one of the benefits of being here too, is getting in the factory, talking to the people actually doing it.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to tell you how to do it smarter and faster.
Don't just talk to the boss, talk to the person, talk to the operator. Absolutely. As a COO, how do you foster this kind of culture of like innovation? And I mean, you mentioned some things about like the visits and some of your advice. But how do you translate this into your team?
I think it's very fortunate to come up through product development. I don't think I'm a traditional operations manager. I came up through the design product development side of it. So I have a very good understanding of what a time in action looks like, what reasonable expectations are. It does not take 3 days to develop a product. It may take 3 days for each trial. And there's going to be a few trials in there. I think the biggest thing I've learned through this is I spent a lot of time, if something went wrong, is hindsighting it and trying to figure out what went wrong, especially trying to hit this FDA monograph. If we didn't hit the rating right, like what went wrong, going back and overanalyzing it. I think recently in my most recent development, I've learned like, okay, that didn't work. Lesson learned, you got to do something different and just move on. So it's a lot of not being afraid to fail and staying in that mindset that it's not a failure if you learned something. It's like, okay, take away your learnings and move forward, but don't get caught up in why that didn't work. And just foster that creativity instead of getting disappointed that it didn't work. It's just reframing that. So I'm in some development right now that I wish it was done by now. I need some other trial runs. It's like, okay, this isn't wasted time. It's going to make the next time I have to do this go a little bit faster. And just really encouraging everyone around me, like, don't get disappointed. Let's just keep going.
Love that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's might be, where a lot of, SMEs fail when they come out of like the startup phase and they go into the SME phase. They're like, okay, we've done all the trial and error. We've got the perfect product, and let's now let's look at scalability. And I think what you're saying is like, no, you need to continue to innovate and you continue to fail. If you stop failing, then I think you're setting yourself up for the massive fail eventually. So, and
getting from like the R&D to the scalability, that's kind of where like it wasn't quite as smooth as I thought it would be. But It's like, okay, what do I need to tweak? And the next time I have to scale it, I know how to adjust. So I think that's really that would be my biggest advice. And then the other one is just be straight up with me. There's a lot of challenges working in this environment. domestically. There's been some issues with some stretch yarns. They're not always available. There's been some issues between nylon 6 and 6 and some changes. So I understand it. I understand the constraints. I'm small. I need to work with where the market's going. I just expect my suppliers to be upfront with me, and I can usually work with those limitations. It's just don't try and hide something. Just tell me there's a problem, and we're going to figure this out together.
Yeah, that communication's key.
Yeah. I mean, if you have to teach somebody to not overpromise in this day and age, like you can't get away with it anymore. Like,
It's a hard lesson for some people. I think everyone wants to please and wants, want the business. So they want to make those promises, but you do have to be real and say, okay, I can't do this, but this is what I can do. And how do we bridge that gap?
yeah.
And it's hard when you're working domestically. Like, again, my suppliers are all in North Carolina. I can get to everybody within an hour. I'm just going to come see what you're doing. We're on the same time zone. I can call you. I can text you. I can find you.
I will be in your facility.
Which which is amazing. It's amazing to work on the same time zone. It took a lot of adjustment. I was used to coming in, at 7:00 in the morning, coming in with a full inbox.
Yep.
Right.
So it's nice just being able to pick up the phone and solve a lot of things quickly.
Nice. Let's kind of let's talk about the future. I think that's a good way to wrap it up. But again, like what you're doing seems to be, it is groundbreaking, which I think is what attracted you to it. But where does it lead? What do you see as the next trends in both, I guess, wearable technology, but then also medical textiles? I think you kind of have your toes in both pools. And so where do you see the future coming? Because there's a lot going on.
What I'm most excited about is we're focused on people's quality of life. I think a lot of these innovative textiles and medical textiles have focused on the elite athletes. Mm. So I think this is now how do you help someone live their everyday life? And that's what really attracted me to the company. Not only the maternity thing, I also have arthritis in my hands, and a lot of the braces are very hard and stiff, or a lot of Velcro. And fashion to me is more important than form sometimes. So all those Velcro straps were snagging my cashmere sweaters. They're just uncomfortable. So being able to just pull on a simple glove and get the same amount of relief is great. And as we have an aging population, I want to help others with that. My mom and my dad are getting arthritis as they get older. So being able to help their life by giving them a pair of socks or giving them a pair of gloves, I think it sounds simple. But I think those everyday quality of life issues making it easier to get out of bed every day are super important. I think there's a need for the elite athletes, especially in that recovery space that we're working with. But I would even simplify it to that. Or my stepdad had Alzheimer's. So he was diabetic. So sometimes he took his medicine 7 times. Sometimes he didn't take it at all. And it was just this dosing that you didn't know. You could just put his socks on and know that he was getting the drugs. Or nursing homes, those patients really don't want to take pills. And you don't know if you could just pull their socks on or dress them and know that they were getting their dose without having that fight and maintaining their dignity. I think there's a lot to be done in that space. So I'm looking at that. There's all this technical stuff that you can do to support your human body, help these athletes perform better. I'm just looking, how do I make the everyday person feel better and perform better? I think it's somewhat that simple. How can we live better just by getting dressed?
Yeah.
I love that. Technology should be helping us live better lives, not just enhancing or creating a new problem or a new, thing. That's great. But if we could just live better and do the things we normally want to do,
right. Live better at an accessible price point and have it available that everybody can get to it.
Yeah.
Right.
So, our product is available in Walmart. You can just go pick it up. I love that pretty much anybody can get it.
Yeah, you don't have to go, hunt for it or wait weeks for it necessarily. You can just run out to the store.
Yeah. That is perfect because, look, I'm a huge football fan, so I always want them bigger, faster, stronger, more exciting. But I
can help you with that too. But the thing that's exciting me is I think there's a lot of focus there. And of course, Absolutely. Like I am not just
Oh
missing
yeah,
that at all. I want to play in that area too. But I just want to bring every day better quality of life
yeah. No, I
to
couldn't
every
agree more.
person.
Like, yeah, I think you're right. Like all the wearable tech I know, I see him at the NFL Combine of like, the heart monitors and all those trackers. Like, so instead of working to create the next superhuman, let's help hundreds of thousands of people just get out of bed every morning.
Right.
Because that's what you're talking. Like at the scale that you're talking about, it's a massive scale. There's a lot of people that can really benefit from this type of development. So yeah, it's hard to ignore of like the good that you can do.
Yeah, and we're starting to see that, especially with, nobody wants to take any of the opioids or any of the addictive medicine. If you can relieve pain by not doing that, so there is a lot of attraction to it that we are FSA approved, that we do have some of that medical space also really paying attention to what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So we have text process coming up. I know that you'll be walking the show and you've attended in the past. What are you excited to see or do in Atlanta this year?
I am excited for what comes next for us. I am looking at some of the new encapsulated technology. I'm anxious to see where some of the sustainable yarns with Ciclo and some other additives that we're doing. So we have our product today, and then we have some plans for what comes next. So I kind of want to check in with all those guys to see what's going on, what new yarns they have going on that I maybe would enhance what I'm already doing.
Ooh, I might steal that of like, come to text process to see what happens next. I love that that's your purpose. I might
That's a
I might
great
steal that for some
slogan.
promotion.
I also think, I mean, it's a great place to connect too.
Yeah.
I think last year ended up being almost more of, there were more conversations happening in the aisles than there were in the booths. I mean, it took a full day to just get around because there were so many conversations happening in the aisles of people reconnecting and networking. So I do think post-COVID, it feels like it's back.
Yeah.
But it was, again, there's a spirit working in the US of what are you doing? How can I help you? Did you meet this person? So, in a lot of introductions, as you're having these conversations in the hallway and someone else is walking by, it just felt very inclusive last year and very collaborative.
Nice. And I mean, I think you've already kind of alluded to the point of, as we do this podcast on Zoom, I guess I'm being a little hypocritical, but this industry is not, in-person proof. Like you have to show up to the factories to know you want to work with them. Like you have to see people face to face and shake a hand in this industry. You still do. There's no
Absolutely.
escaping that. And honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I would go mad if I never left my little office.
And it's
I
a
think
red flag if you can't visit someone in person.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's
So
absolutely true.
I
No, I
appreciate.
think people take you more seriously too. I think the vendors take you more seriously. I say this to my clients too, especially when they're smaller or emerging brands. Like if you show up to the show, that shows how much more serious you are versus the person who will only email and doesn't ever show up. I think it's an irreplaceable experience to go in person.
Yeah, and I'm
Most
kind
people
of seeing.
just keep nudging people too. Like I'm small, like I just keep showing up. Like someday
You
you'll say
will remember
yes.
me.
Someday you'll say yes.
You will remember me one day if I just keep on showing up. I think that's been my personal branding strategy.
I mean, it's not like I've said a million times that my entire career has been being at the right place at the right time because I try to be everywhere all the time. So you just
Yeah,
got to
Sometimes
keep
that's
showing
easier.
up.
Yeah, just show up.
just show up. Yeah, I love that.
And I think that's kind of the motto of our industry right now is just show up to see if we can all make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Show up, keep showing up for yourself, for each other. Yeah, we're in it. No, it's an exciting year. I agree with that sentiment, though. I feel like the last edition was very much like, I mean, we had a huge break after COVID disruptions, and everyone was just excited to be in the same room again. And now we can really look forward to the future together.
Yeah.
There's a ton of really good, people attending, exhibiting, lots of great symposiums and tech talks. So I'm excited.
Yeah. We've got an industry to build. Let's get to it.
Yes.
Get to
Yes.
it. I'm doing my part. I'm trying.
Yes.
And we appreciate
And
it.
And we have Nufabrx will be featured. One of your products will be featured in the Seams supply chain pavilion. We're going to show lots of products from and their full supply chain, kind of start to finish, and how many, vendor companies are involved in a lot of different products, and Nufabrx will be part of that.
I'll give that a little plug too, because I think that's a really cool initiative. There are some companies that have, full traceability, and you can, scan the fiber and go on the website and see it was made on this farm. But y'all will actually have products that are made by the companies there. And so you can see a product, feel a product, and then talk to the entire supply chain that built that product. That is a unique experience that I don't think you could get anywhere else. So that's a really cool thing that you're doing at the Seams Pavilion. So
we're really excited. Yeah, it's gonna be amazing. Been a lot of work, but we're excited for it.
It'll be great.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you being our first guinea pig and on the inaugural Bobbin Around. So, I think you've set a good standard for us to try and match moving forward. So, thank you again for your time.
I hope so. Thank you guys for including me.
Thank you. This has been so much fun.